Rabbi Friedman, thank God it's Tuesday, the day of wisdom, the day of enlightenment, the day of positivity, kindness that we get from you every single Tuesday when you come on to our Radio Verse, for what I'm extremely, extremely grateful, absolutely every single day. So thank you so much for being with us. And again, I will stick to my guns and say that I cannot help but to notice that life and Torah are syncing these days, syncing together. This Torah portion, which we're learning, Mishpatim, is all about treatment of each other, laws of how we are supposed to treat each other, people of the world, and all other laws pertaining to property, proper conduct, and so on and so forth. And what is happening in the world? In the world, we're having impeachments, judgments, laws are being created, and so many things that also has to do with the judicial system and how people treat each other. So, and I would say that the popular word of today's society is fairness or unfairness. So my topic of today's show that I would like for you to enlighten us on is what is fairness and who is responsible for that decision.
Missed you last week.
Me too.
The storm is better?
I got stuck in Florida. I was supposed to fly out on, and I couldn't
You
fly
were in
out.
Florida.
Visiting my father.
Very nice. Anyway, fairness can be a very immoral concept. Communism, of course, argued in favor of fairness, defending the worker, make everything fair. And the end was nobody had anything. That was fair. We're all starved together. That's fair. So fairness is not a very holy idea. In fact, God created a definitely unfair world. Obvious, right? There are those who are rich and there are those who are poor. There are those who are strong. There are those who are weak. There are those who are gifted and there are those who are not. Whose fault is that? Nobody's fault. That's how God created the world. So God wants to have a world that is not fair, because that's part of our job to approach this inequality with a moral direction, with a moral sense. So if you're rich and somebody else is poor, what are you supposed to do? What's the morality of it? You shouldn't be rich. The other person shouldn't be poor. That's not moral. Because there's nothing immoral about being rich and there's nothing immoral about being poor. So why would changing that make it any more moral when it's not immoral? So looking for equality and for fairness is often very out of touch with truth and reality. Unfortunately, when we don't have a good picture, when we don't have a good foundation in morality, we go for substitutes. Like equality is a substitute for morality. I know it sounds pretty radical, but it is true. If I'm convinced that if I'm stronger than you, then I will take advantage of you. Why? Because I'm not moral. Then the only solution, the only way to have a peaceful society is to make sure that I'm not stronger than you. or that you're not weaker than me. Because if that advantage exists, then I will use it. The core message of all morality is you may not use your advantage at someone else's expense. That is morality 101. The rich may not oppress the poor. The strong may not oppress the weak. Those who know may not mislead those who don't. You may not take advantage of your advantage. On the contrary, the strong should protect the weak. The rich should feed the poor. And those who know should teach. So the notion of fairness is a little childish. Sounds nice, but when you try to apply it, it comes out all wrong. I had a famous joke about a guy who was trained in CPR. And somebody faints. So they say to him, "Oh, good, you know CPR, why don't you give him CPR?" He says, "I'd love to, but if I give him, I'll have to give everybody, and I don't have time for this." No, you won't have to give everybody. Fairness, if there is such a thing, fairness would mean everybody gets what they need when they need it. So what's fair? I'm going to give this guy CPR because he needs it. If you needed it, I would give it to you just as naturally and just as happily. That's fair. But to give you CPR, even though you don't need it, but somebody else in the room is getting it, and we don't want you to be jealous or anything, that's absurd. So, if we have morality, we don't have to substitute equality, sameness, or fairness. That's for 6-year-olds.
Rabbi Friedman, but then we can draw a parallel of what you said to some, I don't even really want to say it out loud, but I win socialism, because that's pretty much seems to be the general idea of socialism, yet the way it's being applied doesn't quite work well for everybody. What would be the reason that this wonderful idea, I'm assuming from the Torah, about what you just have explained to us and what we're trying to do with it in our life today, doesn't work?
Well, any attempt to circumvent morality is not going to work. This is what we've been trying to do since the beginning of history. Make everybody equally rich or equally poor, and then there'll be no crime. Maybe there'll be no crime. There'll be no morality either. There's just nothing to steal, or nothing worth stealing. In all probability, people will steal anyway. So no, there is no alternative to morality. So any attempt at equating in order to eliminate violence or crime, it has never worked. It's a childish idea. At a party for 6-year-olds, you don't want anybody getting upset and throwing a tantrum, so you give everybody exactly the same candies. Not a raisin more or less, because kids have this childish sense of justice, which is called fairness. That's not fair.
Does that mean that we are misinterpreting all men are created equal?
Oh. Yes. Because if anything, all people should be treated equal, but they're certainly not created equal. Have you ever seen two people who are equal? No. Equality is not part of God's picture. Equality is a political principle, not a fact of life. Equality in the eyes of the law, yes, that's true. Every citizen deserves the same rights as every other citizen. That's it. That's where it ends. It's instruction to government, not to life. And that's why we're so confused. On the one hand, we're all created equal, we're all alike, we all want the same things, we're all trying to accomplish the same things. And then on the other hand, all that emphasis on individuality, and you got to be yourself and don't follow the crowd and don't just do what everybody's doing. Where's your unique quality? So make up your mind. Also, kids, get this message. You're not allowed to be superior, but you got to be the best. You got to be the best, but not superior. It's double talk. It's foolish.
Rabbi Friedman, again, the state of the world. For a very long period of time, the people of the world did not, in its majority, I would say, did not want to follow God's laws. Now we're getting into a different phase where we don't want to follow any laws, pretty much, that are in place. Where is that going to lead us eventually?
Probably to addiction. If you don't follow God's law, then you don't follow the government's law, and you don't follow your house rules, your mother's rules. Eventually, you can't follow your own rules, and you become addicted. Something takes over your will and dictates to you, and even your mind can't guide you, because you take no instruction from anybody, including yourself. So no, that is not a good direction that we're going in. But what does have to happen is rules that are artificial will never work in the long run. They can work for a while, but they'll always be challenged. The real solution is that what's right must become so natural, and what's wrong must become so offensive in people's minds that they don't even need to be told. Nobody needs to be told to eat and sleep. Why do we need to be told to be good? Because being good is not as natural as eating and sleeping. But eventually that will happen. Right will become so obviously right, and wrong will become so obviously wrong, there really won't be much of a question anymore.
Rabbi Friedman, how come the general feeling, as many people as I have spoken to recently, this is the stand that things are not fair, the way things are evolving right now, and I'm talking about globally. it's not fair towards the people. It's not fair of the conduct is not fair. The outcome is not fair. What can we tell people today as far as how to react to what is happening in the world today?
Well, first, let's stop using the word fair. What's happening is worse than unfair. It's immoral. That's much more serious. So it's not that people shouldn't be doing what they're doing. They're not allowed to be doing what they're doing. It's different. So we have to focus on the moral issue, not on the comfort issue. Inequality is uncomfortable. It's not immoral. So we don't have to struggle for comfort, but we have to struggle for morality. So look at those events or those conditions that you find unfair and identify the immorality of it. Which commandment is it violating? Because it is.
Then the question is, who's going to stop this immorality, because it's happening everywhere?
It's going to stop itself because it's out of control. It's a train wreck about to happen.
Rabbi Friedman, it felt like it had to stop itself a while back, but it still keeps on evolving like a snow ball, just keeps rolling and getting bigger. I mean, how much bigger can it get?
It has to involve the whole world, and that's pretty big. This is not going to be a piecemeal solution. Fix this country, fix that society, fix that religion. This is going to be one total sweep. All morality, no matter what it's hiding behind, is going to be permanently destroyed by itself.
It also feels like the trust factor is no longer there in regards to anything. And, obviously it's stemming from politics, because it seems that everything that is being done there is being done for some alternative reason and purpose. And I'm not even going to point the finger where. I would say pretty much everywhere, all around the globe. How do we deal with this trust factor that people don't know who is doing what and why, and who's going to benefit or hurt?
Well, that's part of the devastation. Evil destroys itself because if you tell everybody not to respect authority, then you're going to be included. Nobody's going to respect your authority. And that kid who went to college with a T-shirt that said in the front, it said, "Question all authority." So another student meets this boy, and he reads his T-shirt, and he says to him, "Says who?" You tell everybody to question authority, the first authority that's going to go is yours. So it's all self-destructive.
Another thing I also notice is people are getting very, very antsy. If before you can sort of try to be, well, it's my experience, if before I tried to be optimistic and soothing and give people hope just with positive conversations, now it seems like it's a little bit annoying to people, because it's like, yeah, when is it going to happen? Where is it? I don't see it coming. I see the opposite.
Yeah, I don't know why it is, but it seems easier to be pessimistic than optimistic. Why is that?
I don't know.
Pull of gravity, down is easier than up. But it is becoming challenging. It is. It's not a good reason to quit.
Mm-hmm.
So in this week's Parsha, God says to Moshe, these are the commandments that you should place before them. And then it goes on to say all those commandments you were mentioning. But the expression, these are the commandments you should place before them, it's a little unusual. You don't place them, you teach them, you say them, What does it mean to place commandments? So Rashi says in these words, if you think that you can repeat what I'm telling you once, twice, 3 times until they are memorized by the people, and that's enough, making a mistake. You have to explain it. You have to lay it all out. You have to make it understandable. You have to make sure that they have no questions left. That's called placing it before them. Why is that so important? Well, obviously. People will obey laws as long as everything is fine and comfortable. As soon as things get a little unusual and a little threatening, people run for the hills, they abandon all the laws, and it's over. Unless they understand the laws, they appreciate the laws, they see their relevance, they see their importance, and even appreciate the fact that these are God's laws. There's infinite value just in that. So here's where God is telling Moshe what a teacher really is. You can repeat what I'm saying until they memorized it. That's not good enough. That's not called really teaching. So going back to your question, if we understood morality, if we understood God's need or God's will in all of these commandments, we wouldn't have such a problem with them. We would be eager to keep them. But we have a very shallow understanding. All we know is 10 commandments and then you go to hell. It's not a pretty picture.
Rabbi Friedman, in one of your last lectures on your YouTube channel, you said something so beautiful. Life is an opportunity to help God's world. God's world needs so much help right now. Are we at all capable of helping anything that is happening with the world today?
And that also is crucial to maintaining the proper attitude and optimism. If you're just sitting around watching, it does tend to drag you down. But if you're actively engaged and you're doing something to make the world better, that increases your optimism. Because you're in on the project.
I gotta be honest, I'm a little bit lost today of what I can do to, I understand in my family, but what about outside of my family? How can I make things better for the world?
Make a spot.
I'm sorry?
Make a spot advertisement on your show, a public service, sponsored ad, saying, who have you called today? Who needs a meal prepared for them? Who can use a little encouragement? Make a little effort. Look around, and see how you can make somebody smile.
By the way, one of your phenomenal ideas we are implementing, every hour we have news, every half an hour we'll have good news. And that is coming very, very soon. But it seems like being positive does not seem to be enough to get people going anymore. It seems like we've entered a new phase very, very recently. Again, this is just an observation on my part. I could be wrong a million times. But it seems that there has to be something more than we can do. I mean, obviously, we need to continue with an optimistic and positive and kind outlook on life and deeds in accordance to it. But there still seems to like we can do more at this point.
Those who can do more must do more. Mm-hmm. So if you're more of a public figure, then you have to do more than just make a phone call. But at least everybody can make a phone call. And then in your private life, if you do another mitzvah, throw a few coins into a pushka, into a charity box, volunteer for something that you've been thinking about but you haven't really done it yet. So yeah, get out your moral fiber and put it to work.
Rabbi Friedman, we know that we don't have a strong judicial system here in the physical world. Who are our judges now for the spiritual? Do we have any at this point who we can rely on for great advice? I mean, you, of course, for sure. But who can people turn to these days for this real good moral advice? And are there people qualified? Because unfortunately, the Jewish world has sustained a lot of losses in the last year, and not last Sunday, but the Sunday before that, 3 great rabbis passed away. And again, we've sustained so many losses in the spiritual world over the year. Who are the judges? Who are the spiritual leaders of today?
We shouldn't get too particular. Just like a doctor is God's messenger, the tool that God uses to bring healing to the world, rabbis are God's messengers. You want to know what God thinks? Ask a rabbi. And God will make sure that the rabbi tells you the right thing. But it should be a rabbi who's devoted to serving God, so that God would use him as a mouthpiece. So it doesn't have to be the biggest rabbi, the greatest rabbi, the smartest rabbi. It doesn't have to be the greatest doctor, the best doctor, the only doctor. Your doctor, your rabbi, God will use them to convey what he needs to convey to you. So don't get overly ambitious about this. I have people who say, I never saw a doctor. Well, why not? So I haven't found that one doctor that is perfect that I would trust. So you see, no doctor. Not smart.
Rabbi Friedman, again, I will go back to the trust factor. We can't trust anything anymore. How can we find trust in spirituality and spiritual leaders? What would be the criteria to follow?
The ironic statement: when all else fails, trust God. Actually, we don't have to wait till all else fails. The only one we've ever really trusted is God. And we're still here, the Jewish people. Other nations trusted other things, and they're gone. If you put your trust in temporary things, you become temporary. You put your trust in that which is permanent and eternal, you become permanent. So, yes, the only thing we can trust today is God. But God works through the world, through nature. So,
how can we become stronger right now in our faith when it's being really tested? How can we pick ourselves up more when there are so many disappointments pretty much on a daily basis?
It's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge. One of the best things you can do is stop listening to the news. It's just designed to make you depressed. That's the plan. The news is meant to frighten you and make you depressed. So don't listen. It's not even interesting anymore.
That's pretty boring.
Same. You can actually write the script for them. You know exactly what they're going to say. So don't even listen. On the other, instead, use that free time to learn the weekly portion of the Torah reading.
Would that be for everybody or just Jewish people?
Everybody.
How can people study and understand? That's the biggest challenge right now. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would be willing to just open up a Torah book, and I heard a lot of people who are not Jewish who said, I read the Torah, and I'm like, and did you understand it? Because that would be close to impossible to do.
Well, they have some new and very, very helpful translations that really make it understandable. You know, it doesn't use that old English language. It's not thee and thou. It's English.
Can you make
and it fills in the gaps.
Can you make recommendations for our listeners exactly what the sources that they could research?
Yes, there's a Chumash or a Torah printed by Kehot Publications, Kehot, out of Brooklyn. Very good translation. And then good commentary. So between the two of them, really is readable for the first time. But really dedicate a certain number of minutes to getting to know the Torah better. It'll be the healthiest minutes of the day.
Yeah, that seems to be something that I'm definitely switching to from the news. I've been doing both, but now I'm doing a little bit more of the Torah, actually a lot. But still, there is this craving to know what is going on. There is that craving. And we have so many tools to do that. I mean, realistically, the internet is the most awesome tool to get the information, yet it's being completely blocked, controlled, and we're in a cloud. I mean, realistically, you go to the internet to find something out, and you can't.
So you try to listen because you want to hear some good music, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't like the music that's coming out these days. So you switch to the channel that plays golden oldies. Right?
Yeah.
Music that used to be great. So there's no new news coming out, so you got to go to the old news. That's the Torah. Like, what's new this week? Oh, this week God is giving the commandments. Right? So let's go back to the old good news.
Yeah, for sure.
People enjoyed that news for many, many years.
Rabbi Friedman, unfortunately, well, this is my case, and this is work-related. You know, I'm trying to be on top of things, and I try, and I'm sure everybody is just like that. Everybody is trying to see if they can penetrate this wall and get somewhere and get some information and learn from history and find out how did we get to this place that we got to now. And unfortunately, a lot of really, really scary things come up, things that are even hard to imagine and hard to comprehend, that humanity can get to a certain point, which I'm definitely not going to discuss on the radio, but those people who are searching, I'm sure know what I'm talking about, can, seeing this information, knowing that it's out there, is it hurting our souls? Is it hurting our humanity?
No, it's awakening our humanity, which is a very, very good thing. So, as it gets tougher, as the negativity increases, we have to increase the positivity. More, not less. It's like this guy asked this son said to his elderly mother, you know, the internet is really incredible. It has answers to every question in the world. Any question you ever had, the internet can answer it. And the mother said, no. How's that possible? He said, no, it really is true. It's an amazing thing, the internet. Any question you have. She says, nah, it can't be. He says, go ahead, ask me a question, anything. She says, anything. How is Aunt Sadie feeling this morning? Oh, okay, that it can't tell you. Then what else do I need it for? So we have to ask the question that the computer can't answer. How's your neighbor doing? You want to know what's happening, right? And we all do. I'm really impatient to hear some good news already, right? But where are you going to hear it? Hear it on the street. Hear it over the telephone. Hear it from your best friends, from your neighbors, from your family members, from real life. Imagine we didn't have this artificial superhighway of information. How would we experience life? By living. So among the many things that were taken away from us this year, like shopping, traveling, sports events, and so on, another thing that was taken away is the internet. It was taken away. It was hijacked, it was kidnapped, and it's being held hostage. So we don't have that either. So just add it, one more thing that we can live without, at least for a couple of months.
Actually, that feels pretty good. Rabbi Friedman, amazing. Thank you so much. I still want to ask, because, you know, Jews, as Jewish people, we always have this preservation of locking ourselves a little bit away from this world and conserving our energy and channeling it for more godly things. And these days doesn't seem to be working. People are not going into themselves, into their communities, into their families. Everybody seems to be out there concerned about what's going on. How will that affect the Jewish people as a nation? And of course, the whole world.
Imagine that there is somebody out to destroy your family. Not physically, but to make problems. How would you respond? How would you treat that? There's somebody out there who bombards you with messages that is meant to keep you away from your family, to turn you off to your family, to make you too anxious to attend to your family. But in all of the above ways, its intention is to destroy your family life. What would you do?
Tune them out.
Tune it out. So when you hear bad news, when you hear this stuff, you know what they're trying to do. They're trying to keep you focused and anxious and fearful about things that you have no control over whatsoever, so that you feel helpless, you feel distraught, and the family just becomes a burden that you can't handle. Your nerves are frayed because you just read a whole long, terrible description of what's happening out there, and you can't even be nice to your favorite child. So identify the news as the guy who is out to get you, because it is. It's like the big Yetzer Hara.
Well, I certainly hope it's close to that turning point that we're all waiting for. I don't know when it's happening, but it really needs to come as soon as possible.
Amen.
Rabbi Friedman, thank you so much. Thank you for the abundance of wisdom you have given us today, as you do every week. And may everybody be well until now and next Tuesday, when we will have the honor and the pleasure of speaking to you again. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.